Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at the secret deck from Worlds, the unexpected deck from Worlds. Every year at the World Championships, we're hoping for a weird, unexpected, couldn't see it coming deck. A couple of years ago, it was Mega Ordino that got all the way to the final and won the whole thing. This year, we've got another deck which was not expected, which could very, very well end up winning the whole thing. And it all revolves around Shrine of Punishments. This is a deck with which multiple players, many of whom are Australian, made it all the way through into day 2 of the World Championships. It dominated. In day 1, we saw at least 2 Australians go 6-0 on stream and get all the way through into day 2 without dropping a game. And the best part about this deck, it's really cheap. It plays no GXs whatsoever. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, no GXs welcome here. Now, Shrine of Punishments is amazing if you're not playing any GXs. It puts 1 damage counter on each Pokemon EX and GX between turns. Which means if there's something like a Tapu Lele on the field, and let's face it, most decks, not you, but most decks are using Tapu Lele to set up, well, that's alright, because after your turn they take a damage counter, and then after their turn they take a damage counter. And even if you don't get all the way to knocking out a Tapu Lele here, it really doesn't take very long at all to get to a point where they're easily within range. This isn't here to just KO GXs. It's here to bring them in range of being KO'd. That's what it does. So, if we're not using any GXs, what are we using? And there are 2 principal attackers in this deck. And they're familiar ones. It's Garbodor and Buzzwole. The Buzzwole from Forbidden Light, the non-GX. The Garbodor from Guardians Rising. And we'll talk about this in a moment, but not the ability locking Garbodor. So what we have is Buzzwole from Forbidden Light, who initially looks like a fairly underwhelming attacker. Now, Sledgehammer is a great attack. 30 damage for 1 energy is not great, but it becomes great when your opponent has exactly 4 prizes remaining and you're hitting 120 for a single energy. And when we're talking about Buzzwole here, we've got to talk about the damage modifiers, because it's not really 120, because you're going to be playing strong energy, that brings it up to 140, and then you're going to be playing Diancie Prism Star, so that brings it up to 160, and you're going to be playing Choice Band, so that brings it up to 190, and Buzzwole GX goes down in 1 hit, Rayquaza GX goes down in 1 hit. And you're not playing any GXs. So in a traditional Buzzwole deck, your opponent can take a single prize, then knock out a Buzzwole GX for 2 prizes, and Sledgehammer never operates. This deck literally plays 0 GXs. There's no Tapu Lele, no nothing. Your opponent must take 6 individual prizes to win, and therefore they must go down to 4 prizes, and Sledgehammer comes in beautifully. And it's really not that difficult to get a strong energy, a Choice Band, and a Diancie Prism Star, at which point you're up to 190, and oh my goodness, this is awesome. I mean, look, you've got Swing Around. Swing Around is fine. 80 damage, flip 2 coins, 20 more damage for each heads. I mean, you'll use it sometimes and fine, I guess, but it's really not what the deck is here for. Even if you're only doing 30, remember, with a strong energy, that goes up to 50. With a Diancie Prism Star, that goes up to 70. So all those evolving basics, like Trubbish, like Ralts, etc., they're all being KO'd here. And then with a Choice Band, you're going up to 100 damage here, which is just 10 damage away from getting a 1-hit KO on a Zoroark. Oh no, wait! Because you got Shrine of Punishments. So for a single energy, you're getting a 1-hit KO on a Zoroark, who is one of the most popular attackers in the format. The other one, Buzzwole, in comes Garbodor. And Garbodor has got Trash Avalanche, and technically you can use Acid Spray, but you almost certainly never will. It's all about Trash Avalanche. 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. Buzzwole has a near impossible time to avoid a Garbodor. If they play 4 item cards, you're getting a one-hit KO on them. If they play 3 item cards, you're doing 60. Add a choice band 90, double with weakness 180, Shrine of Punishments 190. Which means if they play 3 items, you're getting a one-hit KO. So you should be getting a one-hit KO on Buzzwole, just like you're getting a one-hit KO on Zoroark. And remember, as the game wears on, Garbodor will get better and better and better. Because even against something like a Tapu Bulu focused deck, the second your opponent plays 9 items, you can get a one-hit KO for a single energy on a non-GX Pokemon. It's generally early game, you chip away with Buzzwole, you KO pre-evolutions, and you chip away at bigger Pokemon. Shrine of Punishments is always there doing a bit of damage, and then in comes Garbodor to sweep up at the end of the game. And the best thing about Shrine of Punishments is that against Garbodor, a lot of players will take a slower start to the game to avoid playing too many items, to avoid running into Garbodor. But if they play slower to try and avoid Garbodor, that means that they take more turns of Shrine of Punishment, which means they need to play quicker to try and dig for cards like Field Blower to get rid of Shrine of Punishments. But that means playing more item cards, and then of course Field Blower itself is an item card, so when they get rid of your Shrine of Punishments, they're allowing your Garbodor to do an extra 20 damage. And that's generally the deck here. The only other Pokemon you really want to play are the aforementioned Diancie Prism Star, so you do an extra 20 damage with Buzzwole, and then Octillery, because you're not playing any other draw Pokemon. You need some kind of draw engine here, and Octillery is great for giving you that draw engine. It allows you to draw some cards, get set up, dig, to try and make sure you've got everything you need, get that Shrine of Punishment after a Field Blower drops, etc. I mean, it's not the most amazing or exciting of cards, but it's pretty important in here. Now, in terms of the energy, we are very special energy heavy here. We generally saw the Australian players playing like one basic psychic energy, but generally speaking here, you played strong energy, which allowed you to do more damage with Buzzwole, which is important. Beast energy, which, I mean, it's a Prism Star, so you can only put 1 in your deck, but it's basically strong energy, but you do an extra 10 damage on top of the usual. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. And we see Rainbow energy here, because you really are flicking between these attackers depending on what the matchup is. Obviously, with Buzzwole, you would rather have a strong energy or a beast energy, but that's not always an option, ladies and gentlemen. The last thing you want is to have a Buzzwole in the active and only psychic energy in hand, or a Garbodor in the active and only fighting energy in hand. This does mean that you are very vulnerable to Enhanced Hammer, and it does mean you are very vulnerable to stuff like Xurkitree, which can basically block you unless you find your single copy of Psychic Energy. And that is basically the counter for this deck at the moment, if anyone's wondering. If you can play a Xurkitree, let's say in a Rayquaza deck or a Tapu Bulu deck, if you just don't play many items and get some energy on a Xurkitree, you'll win the game because it's very special energy focused. That is one of the big downsides of the deck. Nobody really had an answer for it day 1. Maybe we'll see more Xurkitree day 2 because of it. But even then, you got to get your Xurkitree, get it out, not have many bench Pokemon that can be Guzma'd, and hope you don't have to play many item cards or you run into Garbodor. It's not exactly a slam dunk definitely going to win strategy. Although I do watch a lot of basketball and people miss slam dunks a lot. In terms of item cards and trainer cards, we're not going to go into a huge amount of detail. It's the usual kind of thing, but there are a couple of special ones we do need to mention. First of all, Special Charge becomes huge in this deck because you're very, very reliant on special energy So that is something to bear in mind. You've got to play Special Charge because, okay, it can't recover your Beast Energy, that's a Prism Star, but you're generally playing like 3 or 4 Strong Energy, 3 or 4 Rainbow Energy, and a couple of Psychic at most. You are going to need to recover your Special Energy here. And also Nest Ball becomes really good because you need to set up. Most people don't want to play Nest Ball because Tapu Lele doesn't get the ability when you use it. That means that Nest Ball becomes a lot less effective. But in a deck where you're not playing Tapu Lele, you just need to get all of your basics out as fast as you can, and Nest Ball becomes way, way better because you're not playing Tapu Lele. And then of course Rescue Stretcher is more important than it would be in your average deck here, because it really is Boswell in some matchups, Garbodor in other matchups. If your opponent plays a lot of item cards early, then you may need 3 or 4 Garbodor in quick succession, so in you come with Rescue Stretcher to make sure that happens. Why not the other Garbodor? You don't need it. It doesn't really do much in the deck. The whole point of this deck is you force your opponent to take 6 prizes while chipping away and then sweeping up with Garbodor at the end while hitting weakness on Zoroark and Buzzwole, probably the 2 best Pokemon in the format. Garbodor might slow some decks down, but it also turns off your Octillery, which you really need to draw, and then when you're playing Garbodor, you have to really play a whole bunch of items. Now don't get me wrong, you're going to be playing Floatstone for stuff like Octillery, you're going to be playing Choice Band, and you're playing Floatstone for Octillery and Choice Band for attacking. You don't want to put them onto your Garbodor. It's superfluous. It's not a bad play in the deck, but it's not needed, hence it is, in a very literal sense, superfluous. We're in a very GX-heavy format at the moment with decks like Buzzwole, Zoroark, Rayquaza, and between Buzzwole taking out pre-evolutions and chipping early game, Shrine of Punishments bringing everything down to an easy KO factor, and Garbodor taking out, well, first of all, Buzzwole, but let's not forget that Naganadel was quite hyped coming into this weekend, and the Crozma's seeing a lot of play. And if your opponent ever plays too many items, it's good against anything. You've got a deck set up for success. It is taking the World Championships by storm, and it's one of the cheapest decks in the format at the moment. That's amazing. So tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how much you like this deck. Tell me if you think it's going to be a showing in day 2. Tell me if you think it's going to win the World Championships, or tell me whether you think it's a flash in the pan and day 1 of Worlds was an exception. Go nuts, but remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Do be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter @Alawasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do so. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.